So very shortly after Drake's diss got leaked, like literally hours after, we got a response from Rick Ross. And honestly, it's kind of good. Originally the song was leaked or not leaked, but mentioned as White Boy. It since has been changed to Champagne Moments. But regardless, if you don't know where this beef originated, he does mention it at the end of the track, but basically it's because Drake sent a cease and desist to French Montana, probably for Splash Brothers. And eventually Wayne got on the song instead of Drake. We'll touch on that later if necessary. But regardless, let's get into the song. I don't feel that this song needs as in-depth of a breakdown as some other ones, but there is still some stuff to look at. Starting with, crack smoke is the exhaust from my pen and pad. Ghostwriting, they get to floss what you could have had. Which is just bringing up the ghostwriting accusations that Drake has been dealing with for a long time. Part of me has personally always felt that rappers should write their raps. But it's not a big deal to get some help. Like, I feel like it's totally fine to collaborate, especially if it's a track or something that you really want to profit off of. And the same thing with like ghostwriting. Like if it is like more of a pop song and something that's going to be bigger, like who cares? But when someone does like fully does a song for you and it's one of those like rap songs, then it's a little weird because again, I feel like rappers should be able to rap. Anyways, beyond that, the ghostwriters could also just be fabricating this image of Drake, which he does start to break down with Who Believes You Moving Keys and Louis V's. I don't think that anyone really believes or thinks that Drake has moved work like that, but he does often mention mob ties and a loose relationship to that life every so often, which Ross is basically saying, nah, he ain't all that. So it's interesting, right? He's just making this image of himself, but also a bunch of other rappers are doing that too. So a little hard to talk about and like really stand on. Anyways, the next line's about the record label taking a loss and how he's just a worker, just trying to chart, is kind of funny because a lot of what Drake does can be seen as cash grabs. Like he almost just wants to make music to chart and make money for himself. And, you know, that's a lot about what he talks about in his track. He talks about his success and how he's put other people on, or not even that, actually. He just talks about how, you know, he does well. He did mention that he put people on and like the Drake effect and whatever, but still, like his main focus has always been success. And, you know, yeah, he signed that huge deal to UMG and he's working pretty well there. But Rick Ross's point, I feel, is that Drake has OVO. Like that is still something that he is part of and should be concerned with as well. Like that's something that he should be putting some effort into, or a little bit more effort into, because in contrast to that, Rick Ross does pretty well, I feel, or at least he feels like he does well for Maybach music. I don't pay that much attention to that music because that's not really what I listen to regularly, but you know, that I feel like he mentions it enough and like he is building that brand. But going forward, Ross does also have some input in regards to Snatching Chains, where he basically just said, yeah, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to watch y'all bleed after I do it. Then the chorus is also interesting, where he says, they be leaking records when we speak indirectly. If we keeping it gangsta, when you see me, you check me. Basically, he's saying, y'all over here leaking stuff and mentioning my name rather than just picking up the phone and talking to me. But this could also be seen as Drake being two-faced, maybe. Like the two of them have had a good relationship up until recently. So, you know, they've been speaking directly. They've been friendly with each other. There hasn't been anything to really say like, oh, there's something wrong here. But then he's also going to go out of his way to leak records talking about Rick Ross and stuff like that. So, like, he feels weird about that. Then we move on to the second verse, which starts the whole white boy angle. And basically the gist of it, like, because we don't need to break that down too hard, Rick Ross is essentially saying that because Drake is mixed and because of his upbringing and his background, he is a white boy. Which I'm sure if Drake were Logic, he'd break down and have a mild crisis. But Drake is not Logic. However, the points that Rick Ross is trying to make here is that Drake wants to hang out and be one of the cool kids without actually having to live that lifestyle. Like, he wants to be a part of it, but doesn't want to be a part of it. He wants to have that association. He wants to, like, he's like, he just wants to be friends with these people, but he doesn't want to be it, which is fine. Like, you don't have to, but because of the way you portray yourself on some of your songs, it's a little weird. Like, Rick Ross is basically just saying that he's a visitor. He's not even a guest. He's just a visitor. He's just comes by and takes what he needs, essentially. Rick Ross then goes on to say, Pulitzer Prize winner switching up like dyed denim, which I took as Kendrick. I mean, Kendrick's the only Pulitzer Prize winner here, but Kendrick either is switching up pretty easily because, you know, you can always dye clothes. That's always a thing you can do. But it could also be just the aging process of dyed denim in general. There's a dye applied to it to make it look a certain way, just a certain color. And, you know, in this case, this dye that's being put on is the more artistic version of Kendrick that got him the Pulitzer. But over time, the dye will fade and start to reveal the original state of the denim, or in this case, Kendrick, which I don't know. Maybe this is just the true Kendrick that's coming out. Hard to say. I don't know how much information Rick Ross has. Or he could just be referencing his song Pulitzer Prize. I don't know. Anyways, that's more or less the song part of the track. Like, it's fine and there's nothing really too crazy, and it is very impressive in my mind that it took him basically an hour to get the song out. I mean, who knows? Maybe he had some of this ready to go, but still pretty good. Like, because it is like a proper song. However, the thing that Rick Ross is going to do is latch on to just the memes and the jokes and just make it his personality for the foreseeable future. And a lot of this is in the outro. In the outro, he just kind of rambles, but starts off by essentially saying that Drake never wanted to be black, which is why he got surgery to make his nose smaller. I don't know that that's true, but Rick Ross is going to just run with it. He also mentions that he unfollowed Drake because of the whole French Montana thing and because of how Drake kind of switched up. Like, first, yes, Drake was on the leaked version of Splash Brothers. There was a cease and desist associated with that. And then the official version had Wayne on it. So there's that stuff there. And Ross feels away because him and French are boys. So it is kind of weird. Like, you switched up on us. Like, why'd you do that? But then also because he effectively went to the police, right? Like, when you file a cease and desist, you're going to the police, getting them to shut the whole thing down. And it's interesting too, because Rick Ross was a correctional officer. So it's like you were still kind of in that world. But anyways, Rick Ross didn't like that. He didn't like that you went to the police and started doing all this shit. Anyways, the other thing was, it was weird for him to see this change because he's like, yo, I thought you were just happy to be here. Then he kind of ends out that outro by saying that Drake got cosmetic surgery to get a six-pack, which is something that people have been talking about for a while now. And that is why he's currently wearing those crazy outfits on tour. I don't know. I just think Drake wants to be weird sometimes. But in my opinion, this overall was a solid response because it actually did feel like a song, like I mentioned. And again, it's very impressive that he was able to drop it that quickly. The only thing I feel that Drake would even address here, if he addresses it at all, is the ghostwriting and Rick Ross calling him a white boy. The bits about Lil Wayne and the other people that have kind of supported Drake and, you know, brought him to this level is kind of hard for him to respond to, I feel. But we'll see. At this point, I feel like we're really just waiting to see when Kendrick responds, which according to Daylight is basically ready to go. But we'll just have to wait and see. But that's all I've got for this track. Let me know what you guys thought about Rick Ross's response and where you think things are going. Like, what's going to happen next? I'm curious. I know that for sure. But while you're doing all that, make sure you like and subscribe to see more content like this, because I'm ready to keep looking and making videos on this stuff. So yeah, stay tuned. That's all I got. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.